So today what we're going to do is we're going to continue to talk about how cells get their energy. We talked before about how plant cells make their sugar for photosynthesis. Now we're going to be talking about cellular respiration, which is how cells, like animal cells, make their energy. So we're going to focus today on what cells do with their food. Now, cellular respiration occurs both in plants and animal cells. And what cells use the energy from food to form is ATP. ATP is an energy storing compound, and the process of doing this is called cellular respiration. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. So, how this works is that organisms eat food. Cells use that food to make ATP, and ATP is used by the cell for other functions in order to power the cell. Cellular respiration is the process of making ATP in the cell from oxygen and glucose and releasing carbon dioxide and water. This is the chemical equation for cellular respiration. C6H12O6 plus C6O2 yields 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus ATP. That should probably look a little bit familiar. Where did that come from? Where does that look familiar from? Well, it should look familiar from what we did before. If you take a look at the chemical equation for photosynthesis, cellular respiration is the opposite equation from photosynthesis. The products of one are the reactants of the other and vice versa. Please make sure you know this in order to keep these processes straight. So let's talk about our cellular respiration. Break this down. C6H12O6, that is your glucose. That is from photosynthesis. We talked about that. In order for cellular respiration to occur, we need oxygen. Remember, animals like you inhale oxygen. This yields carbon dioxide, water, and ATP, or energy. The first part of the cell that cellular respiration takes place in is in the cytoplasm. This process is called glycolysis. The glucose is broken down into smaller molecules. A few ATP molecules are made, but more is produced during the second step. The second part of cellular respiration takes place in the mitochondria in our eukaryotic cells. And smaller molecules made by glycolysis are broken down and ATP are made. The ATP are used to power all cell processes. Sometimes when you exercise, there's not enough oxygen in your cells to make ATP molecules for your cellular respiration. Fermentation is the reaction cells use to obtain energy from food when oxygen levels are low. Fermentation takes place in the cytoplasm and less ATP is made than in the mitochondria. Our definition for fermentation is the breakdown of sugars to make ATP without oxygen. An example of where fermentation also occurs is it also occurs in the yeast that we use in bread. There are two types of fermentation. There is lactic acid fermentation and alcohol fermentation. Lactic acid fermentation, glucose is changed into ATP. The waste product is lactic acid. This is how cheese and yogurt and sour cream are produced. That's also what makes your muscles cramp really bad when you exercise or after you exercise. Alcohol fermentation is used by some types of bacteria and yeast. The waste products are ethanol and carbon dioxide. Many types of bread use this, and the carbon dioxide that is released from the yeast is what makes the bread rise. I have a demonstration for you that actually shows you fermentation. You could also try this at home. This is another one of those things, if you have it at home, you can try this at home. You need some warm water, not boiling water. You don't want it super hot, but you do need it warmer than room temperature. Some yeast and some sugar. You mix those together in a bottle. If you put a balloon across the top, what do you think is going to happen? I am going to do this demonstration for you, and I will record it and attach it separately for you to watch. But make a prediction as to what you think is going to happen. Well, what you'll see in the demonstration is that the yeast goes through alcohol fermentation and carbon dioxide is released. And what happens is enough carbon dioxide can be released that we can actually see the balloon start to inflate. So let's do a quick review of cellular respiration. What organisms perform it? Plants and animals, and most bacteria, fungi, and protists. Where in the cell does it take place? The mitochondria. Where's the energy come from? Sugar, the glucose. And what is ATP? It's a type of energy that cells use. So just like we did with our notes for the photosynthesis, what you're going to do is you're going to use the box there at the bottom of your notes, and you're going to use it to replicate the picture that you see on the next slide. If you're an in-person student, you will have these where you can just take and you can cut and paste these. If you are a remote student who does not come face-to-face, you will have to draw these little squares in and your arrows in. Also, make sure that you write down your equation for cellular respiration there on your notes. Let's do a quick review here. Bread has yeast in it. Why does it rise? How is breathing different from cellular respiration? Well, we talk about the bread that has yeast in it. Why does it rise? It rises because of that carbon dioxide that is being released. Those bubbles of gas will make the dough rise. How is breathing different from cellular respiration? Breathing is only taking in oxygen for your cells and releasing carbon dioxide. So it helps aid in the cellular respiration. It supplies it with the oxygen that it needs, and it releases the waste product of the carbon dioxide during the process. But it is not providing your body with the energy or your cells with the energy that it needs to run cellular processes. It aids in that cellular respiration, but it doesn't give you energy. So compare and contrast. Here's a few things to keep in mind about the difference between photosynthesis and cellular respiration, but also some of the things that they have in common. So they both use energy. They both involve oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water. They take place in cells, and they both make energy. Cellular respiration occurs in the mitochondria. It uses glucose and oxygen. It makes carbon dioxide, water, and ATP, and it happens in both plant and animal cells. Photosynthesis occurs in the chloroplast. It uses sunlight. It makes oxygen and glucose. It uses water and carbon dioxide, and plants and algae are the only ones that do this. So, last question. Where does the second step of cellular respiration occur? If you're not sure, go back and check your notes. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, make sure your notes are submitted in Teams so I can give you points for those, and I will talk to you later.